Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. These are the post-fight reviews from the card in Canada, which featured Arslanbek Makhmudov against Sam Peter and also Simon Kean against Siarhei Liakhovich. And I'll start with the Makhmudov fight first, because Makhmudov, a prospect on the rise, didn't disappoint. He blew out Samuel Peter inside a round. It really was over lickety-split, and part of that was because Samuel Peter's strategy. He came out looking to bang with Arslanbek Makhmudov, and it went sideways real quick. Makhmudov catching Samuel Peter in an exchange with a right hand, and he kept throwing the next punch, but he was already starting to stagger and on the way down. And this knockdown was about with 1 minute 10 left in the round, and certainly he looked a little bit unsteady on his legs there, but he got up, he beats the count, and then he looks to have another crack at Makhmudov, and it's all over after Makhmudov lands one of his trademark uppercuts, right uppercut, and then a moment later follows up with the right hand. Peter was staggered by the uppercut and there for the taking with the right hand. He is backed up on unsteady legs. The referee is straight in, saving Samuel Peter from more punishment by Arslanbek Makhmudov. You could tell Samuel Peter wasn't necessarily expecting the punches to hurt as much as they did, because he was still looking to come forward and bang with Makhmudov, and yeah, that went sideways real quick. So another win for Arslanbek Makhmudov. He rounds out a 2019 where he had 5 fights, and the problem for him now, because he's such a big puncher, a heavy hitter, he's struggling to get rounds against guys in the heavyweight division. He's a prospect that is low reward and high risk. The only real rounds that he had in 2019 was against Johnny Rice. That went about 7 or 8 rounds, and that movement did give Makhmudov something to think about. He couldn't just sit there and unload on a stationary target who was right in front of him. And Peter wasn't hard to find tonight in the all too brief action that made up a first round knockout. But another impressive performance by Arslanbek Makhmudov, and hopefully in 2020, he's about, what, 10-0 now, we see a step up in competition, because let's face it, Samuel Peter, even though he's listed at 39, not sure that's his real age, but he's been around forever and a day, and his best days were well over a decade ago when he was in his prime. This version of Samuel Peter is a shell of a shell of a shell compared to what he used to be. But these are seemingly some of the only fights that his management can actually get for him. I'm sure it's becoming increasingly troublesome to try get him meaningful opponents that are going to help him develop. And this is the problem. And the other fight as well, it wasn't great matchmaking, but I'll come to that in a moment, because that was a dreadful fight. Simon Kean made it very hard work. But in terms of Makhmudov, yeah, 2020, what does it hold? I do wonder, do they need some sort of new co-promotional deal, get him into a bigger stable where there's potentially more opportunities, because he's outgrowing that Canadian scene, and I'm not sure how long he can actually remain there, because at the moment he's sort of out of sight, out of mind for a lot of heavyweight fans. But he is a prospect on the rise, very heavy hands. He is a little bit basic and rudimentary. The right hand, the right uppercut, that really is his arsenal in a nutshell, but it's extremely effective. And as Joey DeWecco, who sparred him ahead of this fight, said, he can punch, when he was asked, who's the heaviest hitter you've faced outside of Deontay Wilder. And Joey DeWecco said, it was hard to pinpoint, but he said Makhmudov can punch. So we'll see where Arslanbek Makhmudov goes, but he's an exciting fighter, and he is going to collect more fans in the next sort of 6 months to a year as he does start to climb the levels. So in terms of the second fight, though, Simon Kean versus Siarhei Liakhovich, yeah, it wasn't a great fight. Simon Kean, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe he's a little weary from the previous Dylan Carmen knockout, but he was facing a guy in Siarhei Liakhovich who hasn't had a real fight in 5 years. He had one 2 years ago against a journeyman. His previous fight in 2014 before that was against Andy Ruiz Jr. But this fight here, 43 years old, he was showing Liakhovich way too much respect. The first couple of rounds, I was thinking, what's going on here? Is there something wrong? Because just really wasn't going to work and doing his thing. And throughout the fight, there was a consistent pattern of Kean sort of having a little burst of activity, 3 or 4 seconds of work, letting some thudding shots go, and some of them seemingly hurting Liakhovich, but then he would just stand off, admire his work, and have a rest for the next maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds. He really wasn't working too much, and he was showing Liakhovich way too much respect. And Liakhovich was gaining in confidence and actually started to clip Kean at times in the fight, especially with the sort of short left hand which he was throwing. Kean was seemingly open to it. But yeah, it was a sort of a strange old fight, and yeah, I just sort of thought Kean looked off kilter. And then when it came to the final round, he actually landed a right hand. Liakhovich was actually quite hurt, and it took him about 2 seconds before realizing he wasn't in a good way, and this is when he pounces on him and decides he'll go for broke. He unloads the kitchen sink. The referee, for Liakhovich's sake, jumps in mercifully. If I was Liakhovich, though, maybe I would have been a little bit disappointed, because he had stood up to what Kean had to throw at him. He was only about half a round from getting out of the fight. And overall, though, even though Kean was winning the rounds, he probably won all but one maybe. It was pretty much one-way traffic, but he didn't seem to really dominate like he probably should against this level of opposition. Liakhovich, a 43-year-old who hasn't really been fighting. He's been retired effectively for the past 5 years. So I don't know where Simon Kean is going or what potential issues he has at the moment. Maybe there's some hangover from that Carmen knockout, but it was a very subpar performance in my view. Yeah, it's sort of hard to see him going, towards the top end, to the top echelon of the heavyweight division based on a performance like that. He should have been dominating this 43-year-old, but he just, for whatever reason, couldn't really sort of pour it on and hurt him and pick him apart. He was there to be hit a lot, but Kean, like I said, just worked in little spurts, really didn't seem to want to put the hammer down until it was obvious that he could. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that performance. It wasn't great, but if you caught it, what did you make of it all? Arslanbek Makhmudov, impressive again, stops Samuel Peter in a round. That's good going. And Simon Kean, he gets the win, a stoppage in the 10th round, but far from impressive in my book. How about you? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.